I want to welcome everybody to George Music for All Four Seasons. And we have Mr. Anthony Colatrella, Mike Derrico. And right now, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony, who will start the show for us. Take it away, Anthony.
Okay, George. Greetings to everyone from not from Asbury Park, New Jersey, but from cold gray Pittsburgh. I know it's warmer for George there in Los Angeles. And,
beautiful.
Yeah, I hope it's warmer wherever you all are. Our four-season fan guest today is Mike Derrico. Like me, Mike is from New Jersey, but he's still there. So I hope it's at least a little bit warmer for him today. Mike was one of our regular crew when we were doing Four Seasons on Saturday with Ken Charmer. Some of you may recall those shows, previewing the Snapper box set. Although much younger than George, and especially I, Mike is a longtime four-season fan. And being younger, he probably will give us a little bit of a different perspective on the Four Seasons. Mike had his own podcast for a few years until June, I believe, of 23. That was called Rock Under Fire. He discussed and analyzed all types of rock music. And he also did interviews, including one with Joe Long. And I'm sure we'll get into that. Mike is also the author of several books, and we might discuss that as well. So I said Mike is much younger than George and I. He was born in 1970. He is much younger.
Very.
That was at the end of the Phillips era with Frankie, Bob, Tommy, and Joe Long. So, Mike, you really couldn't have been much aware of the group at that time. When exactly did you become aware of the Four Seasons? Let us know.
They were just always there. It's just something. First off, it's good to see you guys again. George, I'm meeting for the first time today.
Yes, we are.
George, I've watched you guys. I continue to watch the show after, I kind of disappeared for a bit. And Anthony, it's good to see you again. So
same here.
To answer your statement about the weather, no, it is not any warmer or drier than where you are. It is cold and wet. It was snowing earlier this morning. It is just miserable outside my window. So with that, to answer your question on the seasons, no pun intended. No, well, pun intended. Pun intended.
Yeah, a little bit.
The music was always there. It's literally the first music I hear as a baby. So we're talking 71, 72. But the first I remember of it was, I'm going to say 73, because my memory really begins in 73. I'm 3 years old. You should know that I'm one of those people who, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term superior autobiographical memory. Now those are the people, there are maybe 50 people that are diagnosed with this, known cases around the world. The actress Mary Lou Henner from Taxi is one of them, where these are people who can literally remember every day of their lives. They're the ones that could tell you on September 17th, 1977, I was wearing this, I ate this, so-and-so visited my house. I've got a very mild case of that.
So that's real.
I am undiagnosed, but I know I'm one of those people, because if you've known me throughout my life, I'm the weird guy that says, no, that wasn't 1977. That was actually November 1st, 1978. Or something to that.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, see, I have
the timeline is everything.
Yeah. I have memories when I was 3 years old, probably 3 years old, 9 months to 12 months, because I remember going into 4 years old. I'm talking 1963. But anyway, go ahead.
Hey, I don't want to. At my age, I don't even remember where I was yesterday. So
that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because sometimes this comes as a blessing, but it also comes as a curse sometimes, because there are things that you don't remember, there are things you don't want to remember,
Right.
So I'm gonna say that my first real memory of it is funny story. I'll try to make a long story short, but my mom, she throws away the covers of everything. So if a new record, she would throw the covers away because it was kind of like unwrapping a stick of gum. You take the gum out, you throw the wrapper away. So it never registered that you are supposed to keep these things. You know, you don't throw this out. You know, I don't know if you guys can see this, but you don't.
Oh yeah.
So they moved a few times when I, when I was a kid. So they moved, and a lot of things got, rearranged and lost. But at the bottom of a paper Pathmark bag that my mom gave me were a stack of these. And I played with these. They were all scratched and they were just kind of old. These were already my dad's old Four Seasons records. And I think he had bought them again at that point. But I had a stack of these, and these became my toys. I didn't know what they were, but there were these fun little things, and I would drive a car, and this was the steering wheel. So it was kind of like, but so the first thing I saw was this label. I said, what is this? But I used to hear this, I used to hear the music in my house all the time, whether it be on the radio or something that my dad was playing on the stereo. So I knew the songs. I didn't know a lot of them, what they were called, but they, you say, this is Ragdoll. My mom would say, this is Ragdoll, and, this is Sherry. And so by the time I was 4, we're talking 1974, I knew Chameleon. I remember the Mo West label. I remember there was this one weird record that they had that didn't look like this. It had so I was really attracted by the label itself, the sun and the water, and color's everything to a kid. So you're like, wow, what is this one? Play this one. I jump up and down. Play this one. So so the music was always there. I can't tell you the first time, but it was something that, childhood memories are like, they're like snapshots. You can't see the whole memory, but they kind of exist as little snapshots. And every time you think of it, you see the same scene, right?
Right.
So I could still envision standing at the stereo and my dad playing A New Beginning, saying, you know what, this is a different kind of Four Seasons record. And I don't know if he has to actually grasp what was different about it, but it was just different sounding, and it didn't sound like Dawn, and it didn't sound like Walk Like a Man, and I knew that much by the age of 4. So, and I saw them for the first time that summer, at
Interesting.
I've got vague memories of it. Like I said, they exist as snapshots.
What year was that? You were at the age
74, and I later tracked down the date as August. It was late August 1974. Convention Hall 19. Oh yeah, so Asbury Park, and it's Stewie Stone was the opener, a comedian.
Wow.
And we sat, I would say, somewhere like in the 3rd or 4th row. Side of the stage was John Paiva. He was still a backup guitarist, and I know that because he was standing on the opposite side of the stage, and Joe Long was still there. And John Paiva, when he became a Four Season, they moved him to the other side of the stage to stand next to Don Ciccone.
Yeah.
Right.
So those are my memories.
That's great. That is great, Mike. That is
that
the album Chameleon. That's the album that got me into the band The Four Seasons when I was 12, 13 years old. That was my first listen. And then after that, their greatest hits came out on TV. And hearing those greatest hits, it took me back. I've heard that before, but I couldn't place it. But just, that was it. Chameleon, dived in, never came back up. Go ahead,
So
Anthony.
as far as you hearing Chameleon first, did you say, as far as like the older songs, like you kind of knew them already and just couldn't place it with the same group, or did you go back and hear that stuff and discover it for the first time?
After getting Chameleon, being familiar with the name Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, shortly thereafter, there was a commercial on TV for a 4-album set, Longines Sinfonette, with the greatest hits of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, something like 60 hits. That's the one. I still have that album.
Right on cue.
My dad bought me that album when I was 14 years old. Listening to that album, each song took me back 7, 8 years earlier when I was a young child. I've heard that before, and it just started clicking. I didn't listen to Chameleon again because I was so into that 4-album set. But then thinking, how could Chameleon be the same band on these 4 albums? It was just, and that also fascinated me. And that's, like I said, when I took the dive into the band and have never come back up since.
One of the things that, go ahead, Anthony, go ahead.
I was just going to say, obviously, being a bit older, I followed the Four Seasons, right from the start, the original Four Seasons in 1962. So I was, certainly indoctrinated into that classic Four Seasons sound. But also, then, of course, they attempted this very drastic change in their sound with the Genuine Imitation Life Gazette, which, as we know, turned out to be a commercial failure and was kind of rejected by the typical Four Season fan of the day. And then they sort of went into that slump that lasted through the rest of the Phillips era. But then they also, went to Motown, and Bob Gaudio was still intent on a new sound. So Chameleon came out, and I just regarded it as kind of his second attempt after the failure of Genuine Imitation Life Gazette to come out with a new sound. But he certainly tempered it. It wasn't as drastic a difference, a change, as with Genuine Imitation Life Gazette. And I thought it was excellent, an excellent attempt at a new sound. Although, again, it was a failure. It was a commercial failure.
I didn't come across Genuine Imitation Life Gazette till I was about 16, 17 years old in Hollywood, going through record bins. And I see that album, come home and play it. Again, 16, 17 years old. It's like, what the heck is this? And again,
Was that before or after Chameleon?
That was after Chameleon. This was in 1976, 77 when I first found that copy.
You had heard Chameleon first, and then
Chameleon first, the 4-record set, looking for original albums after that. Then I came across Chameleon, and I thought that was the greatest thing to hit vinyl. I was just taken away by it.
A lot of Four Season fans, their first introduction to the Four Seasons really was in the 70s, sort of with Chameleon and thereafter.
Yeah.
So they didn't really have the context of the original Four Seasons until, they would delve into it once they became fans.
Yeah. And again, everything I heard, everything. It took me. But anyway, back to Mike.
Mike is he on his podcast, he would discuss and analyze different rock songs. So I've heard Chameleon was described as, and I think I might be paraphrasing, but it was described as a breathtaking example of the Western sound of the 70s, and even comparing it to the Beach Boys album Surf's Up, which I don't follow the Beach Boys at all, so I have no idea how that album sounds, but that was a comparison. What do you two think of that statement? A breathtaking example of West Coast sound of the early 70s, comparing it to the Beach Boys.
I'm not familiar with the album Surf's Up, I think there's a song Surf's Up. I believe I've heard it a couple times, but not familiar with it.
Yeah.
You might.
Well, how about just the general statement? West Coast.
I don't know.
Sound.
I don't know where that statement came from.
Yeah.
And like George, I'm not too familiar with the Beach Boys 70s work. I know the album Holland a little bit. And I don't hear that.
You don't hear
connection. Yeah. I think that it's just more the Four Seasons trying to sound and fit into the Motown thing.
You know, and I don't see that. I see it as the Four Seasons, because to me, Chameleon, my opinion, other than Walk On, Don't Look Back, which isn't on that album, to me, none of it sounds like the Motown of the day. To me, it just sounds like the Four Seasons, the actual band, progressing forward. And
I don't
it was a great sound. I listened to it today. I think back of what was on in the early 70s, mid 70s. And I tell myself, why wasn't this album accepted? It is a great piece of work, a piece of art. It is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they were trying to make a Motown sound. And don't you think, in retrospect, that was part of the problem with Motown? They didn't really have a Motown sound at all. I don't think Motown really knew what to do with them because of that. They really didn't fit into the Four Seasons as a group did not fit into a Motown
They
mold.
certainly didn't know how to promote them.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Classic curse of the group is that no label knew how to promote them.
Right. And if you remember early on, Berry Gordy thanked Bob Gaudio or the Four Seasons for Sherry, because that's where he got the hand claps and the floor stomps for Baby Love. And that was a typical Motown sound there. So I've always felt the Four Seasons influenced the original Motown sound.
Yeah. Well, I've mentioned or talked about what I thought of how Motown handled the Four Seasons, probably ad nauseum. But I think
you can maybe hear it in something like "Touch the Rain Child." I think is got a Motown influence to it. You know.
Okay.
I mean, that's the extent of it. But
well, the Chameleon out. So the Four Seasons signed on to Motown in late 71, like October of 71.
Right.
Then for November, December into January, they were recording songs. The first song, which was "Love Isn't Here" by Frankie Valli, that came out in February of 72. The Chameleon album came out like 3 months later in May of 72. But then what happened? The next single that came out was by the Four Seasons in like August of 72, but it was "Walk On, Don't Look Back."
Right.
And that was written by Berry Gordy and the corporation, the Motown songwriting team. And that was clearly a throwback to the old Four Seasons sound. So I think in retrospect, Berry, the Chameleon, "Love Isn't Here" wasn't a hit. The Chameleon album wasn't a hit. I think Berry Gordy said, "Oh, well, let's try to write something more like the original Four Seasons would sing," which was terrible, a terrible decision, because that was exactly what Bob Gaudio did not want to do
at all.
Yeah. They just screwed everything up as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. But their sound was their original sound was still alive, and I will say in demand. When we look at Billy Joel's "Uptown Girl," I mean, that is everything Four Seasons.
Yeah, they could have. Well, I don't know. At that
the
point,
thing with that, and I have this theory that styles come back and they come full circle, but it takes about 20 years. So, but in the 70s, the vocal group thing was pretty much over, unless you were, Philly Soul, which thrived in the 70s. Let's face it, Philly Soul owns the early 70s.
You're right, Mike. You're 100%
but
right.
Uptown Girl comes out in 83. 20 years from Walk Like a Man, right?
Yeah.
Or Walk Like a Man was 62, right? The end of 62?
Early 63.
Okay.
You were right.
But I forgot where I was going to go with this, because it was a thought I had before that. And I'm sure I'll come back to it. So carry on.
All right. Okay. Well, go ahead, Mike. So as far as going to that concert in 74, their albums, I mean, you've always been a strong Four Seasons fan, right? And it comes from your dad, your family.
Yeah, we starting in 74. I mean, going the Four Seasons concerts were a yearly thing. They toured almost every year. So, I mean, we went back and saw them at the Garden State Arts Center starting in 75. Tony had mentioned Joe Long. And I mean, I've got hours of Joe Long because before, what a lot of people don't know is anybody that's heard the podcast interview, I was talking to Joe through most of the summer of 2017 because I had started a book about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, which kind of got tossed aside for various different reasons, but Joe was all for it. And as were a few of the ex-members. But that aside, so I was talking to Joe, and one of the things that we talked about was where was I going with this? What was the question, George? I'm sorry. Because I'm going off track, and
no.
There are layers of this.
About being a 4-seasons fan at a young age, coming from your dad, your parents, listening to the music, and then.
Right. Okay, so the concerts. So one of the things that Joe told me that kind of got left out of the discussion was that when they started playing the Garden State Arts Center, they ceased playing Convention Hall because, and Anthony knows the details of this. What was it? A 50-mile radius that you couldn't play another venue?
That's right.
Yeah. So all of the concerts, and Anthony saw a lot more than I have, right? At Convention Hall, and my dad, the same thing. I think that you and my dad were at a lot of the same shows between the Steel and Convention Hall. So in 75, they stop with Convention Hall and they start with the Garden State Arts Center. And one of the more interesting things I have to say about all of this is that I'm not 100% sure, but I'm about 99.9% sure that I saw the very first Seasons concert without Joe Long. And the reason I know this, and he agreed with me, is that the last thing he did was the week that they hosted the Mike Douglas show. Right. Which was the first week. It was early September of 75.
Right.
And that weekend, the in between is the weekend, but right around Labor Day, they played the Garden State Arts Center for the first time, and Joe was not there.
Wow.
And I remember this vividly because I started kindergarten the very next day, and I brought my concert program in to show the teacher.
Oh, how interesting is that? That is awesome. Kindergartner.
Yeah. So that was my second show. And from there, I mean, we saw him in 76, 77, 78, which was Frankie's solo. You know, Lee was there, but it was when, you know, it was that thing. I don't know if you posted it or someone posted it about a week ago. It was Frankie in Central Park.
That was me.
Okay.
Were you at that concert?
It was that tour. I didn't go to the Central Park show, but I saw that show at the Garden State Arts Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I saw Frankie Valli exactly a month and a week later, my very first time. And
so where were you catching those shows at?
The very first time I saw him was his only LA summer engagement right here in Los Angeles, California.
So have you always been on the West Coast?
Always.
Wow. So you saw some, just basically the West Coast equivalent of what he was doing over here.
Exactly. And that was the very first time I saw him in concert, and it was great. Of course, it was just billed as Frankie Valli. And after the concert, I also got to meet him. No, I didn't get a picture, but I got a couple autographs. And a week after that, that's when Grease shot up to #1. Yeah, great summer.
I remember that 78 show, but I don't remember much about what was played, but I do remember recognizing Lee Shapiro because I knew all their names. Now, keep in mind, I'm 8 years old at this point.
Yeah, you're a young kid.
8 years old, but I knew all their names of the quote unquote new Four Seasons because that was the only Four Seasons I knew. That was another question I wanted to ask, but I mean, like all these questions are kind of like crisscrossing here. So I'm hoping to remember all of them because I want to ask you some things. I want to ask Anthony some things.
Sure.
Related to stuff we already said. But forgive me, I've done a podcast for a long time, so I ask questions much better than I answer them.
Okay.
So, So yeah, I just remember like I had no idea that there was a quote unquote farewell tour in '77 at the time. To me, it was just like, I just remember going into that show like the Four Seasons aren't here. This is not the Four Seasons, my dad would say. It was just Frankie Valli, and I didn't understand. I thought he was going to come out by himself with nobody, and I didn't grasp what's this concert going to be. He's just going to stand there by himself with a microphone. Is there going to be nobody playing drums? Like, so when it came out, I was just like, what's the difference? There's Lee Shapiro, you know. Who are these extra people or something like that? That's probably what was going through my mind, but I didn't think too much about it at the time.
No, you were a little guy. You were.
I don't remember. I don't think there was a show in '79, but the next one was the live album.
And so talking about the Garden State Art Center in Homedale, 1980, the reunion tour. That's where it kicked off. So you attended.
I attended. I was there. I remember.
I don't know if you
I remember everything. I remember that was a busy weekend because I went to a Mets Pirates game the night before, and at Shea Stadium.
Who were the pitchers?
Sorry?
Who were the pitchers?
The pitchers were Tom Houseman and I don't remember who started for the Pirates.
Good enough.
John
it might have been. Wait, I mean, look, now I'm doubting myself. I don't know. It might have been Tom Houseman. But anyway,
started for the Pirates. Hey,
anyway, so
go ahead.
I remember before the concert started in Homedale, Jerry Corbetta came out.
Right,
and his arm was in a sling.
Yeah, right.
And he introduced himself as one of the Four Seasons, and I was like, "Who's that? He's not one of the Four Seasons. Who is this guy?" Yeah. And he started to tell us that they were recording a live album to be extra loud, to be extra, like to make sure you're really loud and you scream and
right.
And then next was the concert, but he was there. Obviously, Lee wasn't. I noticed that John wasn't there.
No.
I noticed, and this is again at the age of 10.
Right.
So I didn't understand what Reunited meant. To me, it was just like, this is okay. They got some new members, but they never really went anywhere. And again, this is just my perspective at the time. So
interesting.
Let's see. What another thing I can tell you about that show is the live album is not what the show was like. That live album is about half of what that show was.
Really?
The live album is designed to be a greatest hits package, right? And it's all like the medleys. I can tell you that show was more aimed at promoting the newer music because they cut a lot from that show. They cut 3 or 4 songs from Heaven Above Me, which I don't think was out yet. And that may have something to do with MCA and maybe the rights to the music and having to license MCA tracks.
Right.
Hence them, and Anthony would probably know more about this than me, but using songs like Heaven Must Have Sent You on side 4 and Spend the Night in Love, which I don't think they played at that show.
No, those were recorded in a studio. Those were
another gentleman
fill in the space.
Another gentleman that we spoke with that also attended, which I could say his name, David Case, also attended that concert, right, Anthony?
Right.
And he states those 2 songs were not sung at that concert; they were added on in the studio. But David Case was at that concert also.
And they later played Spend the Night in Love when they were promoting the live album. They did some shows at the tail end of 1980, and our friend. One of our friends, should I name his name? Okay, sure. Chuck sent me a really good show from Detroit.
Right.
And
he gave me that same show this past summer. It's a great show. And
they play Spend the Night in Love, and he talks about it, and I don't know the details on this one, but he talks about it like it's a single. Did they release that song as a single to promote the live album?
Yes. Yeah, it was released as a single.
I
Wow,
have
I have
live.
no memory of that.
Yeah,
Does
And-
anybody have the single?
I do.
You have that?
Oh yeah.
One of the few
Do you know
people.
the B-side? What did they put as the B-side?
Oh my gosh.
Rhapsody.
I think you're right, Anthony.
Live? Is it Live Rhapsody?
It might have been Rhapsody.
I don't. You know what?
Wow.
I will have.
You're
to
blowing
go.
my mind here.
Yeah, yeah.
For
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't have that single, Mike?
Spend the Night in Love?
Yeah.
No, I didn't even know it was a single.
Oh.
I didn't
no.
even know it was a single.
The B
Not
side.
released here.
Yeah, the B side was "Slip Away."
Slip away.
Okay.
Okay.
Rhapsody
Okay.
was the B side of East Meets West.
Yeah.
That's
Keep in mind,
right.
I'm like 10 years old going into 11 when the live album came out. We got the live album very early in 81.
Okay.
So whatever was on the
That's when
radio,
I got my
I mean,
copy.
they were never on the radio in 1981,
Both
so I
of
had no
them.
idea.
Yeah, both of those songs were released as singles. "Spend the Night in Love" and then "The Heaven Must Have Sent You From Above."
Well, that
And,
one I remember. I don't remember
Mhm.
Spend the Night in Love being on the radio or anything like that.
Yeah, I remember that, but I heard it maybe one time. I guess they didn't really do anything. They didn't go anywhere. So
Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah.
what did you think of the 2 album live, the live concert set? What are your thoughts on that album?
Of the Reunited Live?
The Reunited live.
I mean, I love it. It was,
Same
I
here.
mean, again, I'm 10 years old when it comes out,
Yeah.
right? And we played it every day. And you hear things so much
Oh.
that it just becomes, it gets in your blood. It just becomes part of the air you breathe. You know what I mean?
Bingo.
It's like you
Exactly.
recognize every little sound
Everything.
on that record. And then, I always kept in mind, even as a kid, I was like, this is not the whole concert. Where's Soul? Where's Heaven Above Me?
Right.
Where's Green Eyed? They did Green Eyed Lady, Jerry
Oh.
Corbetta. I always started to say Jerry Garcia, like I was listening to the Grateful Dead this morning.
Yeah.
Jerry Corbetta sang Green Eyed Lady.
Great live version of that with the Four Seasons. Oh, that is great. It's on the Detroit concert, right? Yeah. Great.
So, I love the live album. I mean, I still hear it occasionally.
I just heard it this week. And when that album came out, day and night, look, again, I had never heard anything like that from the.
Got it right here.
There you go. there
you can
go.
tell I'm surrounded by my records because as Anthony will tell you, I like to pull out album covers on the other show.
Great. No,
they repackaged that later as a CD, but they didn't call it Reunited Live. They just called it the greatest hits of the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
I think like 20 greatest
that.
hits. Yeah.
Yeah, the 20 greatest hits of the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
And it had that big annoying bar at the top of the CD where it cut off half the picture.
You're right. Right. Yeah. God, that I just really enjoy that album. Well, Mike, if I can ask you, you want to share a little bit of you starting your own podcast, and then if you'd like to share anything regarding the Joe Long. What I did catch, you said you had hours of conversation with Joe Long. I mean, very interesting, because your podcast, I downloaded and I recorded it on CD in case it should ever disappear from the website, I guess I'd call it. I love that interview.
Joe? Yeah.
I love that interview. And when it first starts, it sounds like you two were already conversating.
Yeah, that was one of the things about Rock Under Fire was...
How did you get in touch with him?
If I like everybody else, I just wrote to him.
Okay.
And some of them respond, some of them don't. I won't name names of the ones who didn't, but
okay.
But yeah, I had some really good correspondence with him and Don Ciccone. Don wanted to do a book of his own. He said, a lot of times I've thought about doing a book from the inside, and he may have,
his children are taking off with that right now.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
So did he finish the book, or
he didn't finish it.
No, I think the two kids are working on that, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And I think
it was the summer of 2010 or 2011 when I was talking to Don Ciccone, and he mentioned that he wanted to do a book.
Oh, okay. And I think the last YouTube post the kids did had something to do with Don Ciccone teaches Frankie Valli how to talk. Something, yeah, something like that. But anyway,
So,
go ahead. If we can hear some your podcast, maybe
oh
some.
yeah. So, Joe was, I mean, we talked a lot about just his time with the Seasons, and I initially wasn't going to have him on the podcast. We were looking for a reason to have him on the podcast because that was geared mostly toward hard rock. I don't know if it wasn't the right forum.
Yeah.
And when they went in the Jersey Hall of Fame, I called him up and said, "Look, you got to come on. You're going to be inducted into the Jersey Hall of Fame. What better way? Like NJ.net even posted the interview, and
Wow.
so that was when I did the podcast with Joe. As far as those other hours of conversation, these are
Yeah.
just phone calls that I have no intentions of releasing. I think
Right.
about it because a lot of it, what we cover, is mostly covered in the podcast.
Okay.
And a lot of the other things, again, these were just going to be used for my notes for the book.
Right. Right.
And a lot of my interview, like I do a lot of book interviews. I've got one coming up in a few days because I'm working on my fourth book, which will be out in 2026. But it's a lot of interviews.
Good
A
for
lot
you.
of interviews. So it's
Wow.
just I record my interviews, but I record them and I tell the person I'm talking to, look, I have no intention of ever releasing this. This is just for my notes.
Got it. Got it. Look, Mike, it would be interesting to hear whatever you have on Joe Long recorded, but by all means, we respect your decision.
A lot of it is, again, what we talk about is just very long-winded because it's relaxed and, you're just talking to somebody on the phone and there are, so a lot of it would have been edited, for time purposes. And that because you edit a podcast yourself.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
working on it.
Yeah. So I know that he had a lot of time that summer because he had some surgery early in the summer and he was in therapy. He was going through physical therapy and we would talk after his therapy. We would always talk like the same day. And that was became like a thing for, I would say, July and August of 2017.
Oh, that is so cool.
And that's how I got to know him that way. But he was very responsive to, my idea of the book. And
wow.
At that point, I was trying to revive it. I had started another book, which kind of took that became the priority. Mm-hmm. But the whole project just kind of fell through again, like I said, for various reasons.
Right, right.
Some of them being legal. So
okay. Well, the interview that you did do with him was so informative. One of the subjects, him not getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I have always been bothered by that. I really feel bad for Joe Long not getting in. I don't understand why. I've heard comments on why, but that's here nor there. But he should have been inducted.
Yeah. It was because of this rule that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame had that you have to be an original member to be inducted, but yet there are, examples where that has not been the case. So,
I mean, Bruce Johnson is in there with the Beach Boys. Bruce Johnson.
I think the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is really, it's very political, and I think it's whatever they want to do, they'll do. I don't think there's any kind of rhyme or reason why they do things. It must just be how they feel at the time. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm no fan of the hall. And
right.
I think in the future, they might get it right with a few acts because from what I understand, unless anything has changed, is that Jan Wenner is no longer involved in It used to be, well, as long as I'm here, so-and-so will never get in and this group will never get in and this, and he used to do the same thing with Rolling Stone magazine.
Yes.
We will not review this group in our magazine.
Oh, okay.
So, really, I mean, just like case in point, Kiss. Jan Wenner hated Kiss. and to the point where he didn't even want to review them in his magazine. You know, they did, but then once they got big, he was just like, oh, not this group, you know, and he threw out a lot of stuff. Robert Duncan, who I interviewed a while back, and he wrote a book on them, you know, and he wrote for Cream and Rolling Stone in the 70s. So, I mean, Wenner threw out a lot of stuff that he did. But
interesting.
You know, so let's see what happens. I mean, like Foreigner got in this year. I mean, Foreigner probably would have never gotten in had Wenner been around.
Yeah, that's too bad. I think Foreigner definitely belongs there.
Yeah.
So do you still have your podcast going? Or I think I heard you no longer do your Rock on the Fire.
I stopped after 100 episodes.
Wow.
After it just kind of it evolved into something else. I kind of got tired of being boxed in by the subject of music.
Mm-hmm.
And I started interviewing a lot of authors and just writers talking about their books near the end. And it was just kind of, I just lost interest in it. It was nothing that I wanted to take up a lot of time with. And I mean, I miss it, but I don't miss the editing and the just getting it, dealing with, you know, media hosts and getting it uploaded and doing all that fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. It can be a lot. It can be a lot. But I mean, some very interesting work there, Mike. You mentioned some books. You said you're on your 4th book right now?
I am, yeah. One of the blessings, and maybe the only blessing of the pandemic and being in shutdown for so long, was that I was able to finish the first one and edit the second one, because the second one was actually the first one, and it was just kind of sitting around for years. And so I put that together, and I'm working on something massive right now. It's based, you know, that has to do with New York City in the 1970s. And I'm not ready to talk about it.
Okay, sure.
It's
wasn't that already done?
Pretty crazy. Sorry?
I think they already did that. Club 54, I think it was.
Oh, listen, I these books, there are dozens and dozens ad nauseum on the 1970s New York City, man. It's like almost a cliche now.
Yeah.
But none are like mine. None are like this one. I promise, the greatest publication on 1970s New York City that you've ever imagined.
We'll have to keep a lookout. When do you expect it to be released?
I'm looking at mid-2026.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
To coincide with the 50th anniversary of the bicentennial. So that'll give you some idea of what's going on there.
Got it.
You know, it takes place in an 18-month span of time.
Ah, great.
I had a question getting back to your attempt at writing a book on the Four Seasons. Did you connect with, there have been a couple of others who have tried to write a book about the Four Seasons. Well, of course, Rex Woodard wrote one with Tommy DeVito. And
I challenge that. I don't think DeVito wrote a word. I think Rex.
Oh no, yeah, I'm sure he did not. Yeah, I'm sure he didn't.
I think DeVito just got in his ear a little bit.
Yeah, I think DeVito, you know, related all of his stories. And
right. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, Rex Woodard wrote it to a book, which apparently is still around. And the last
it's called Jersey Boys.
It's called Jersey.
It's called Jersey Boys.
Right. But apparently Rex Woodard unfortunately passed away.
Yeah,
and
tragedy.
His niece has all of his memorabilia. I don't know if you saw, she put a notice on one of the, maybe more than one of the Facebook pages that she was selling, and she showed a picture
boxes
of a whole room full of stuff.
Wow. So he was a collector then?
Yes.
Oh, yes. He was a collector. Yes. Yeah.
Huge collector.
And she said it included everything except for the Tommy DeVito book, that she was still trying to get that published. Now, she wanted to sell the whole thing in one piece. I haven't heard anything since. I don't know how and you had to go there. She lived in Texas, I think. You had to go there to pick it up.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just wonder if she ever sold it.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff did he have?
Well, it was a whole room full of stuff.
Wow.
boxes. She
Yeah.
showed boxes and boxes, piles of paperwork.
Right.
There's photos, interviews, autographs, concert memorabilia. I mean, he was a very big fan. Big
But
fan.
yeah, I think Walt Golander, also a big collector,
Yes.
attempted to write a book, and I read there was an article in one of the record collector magazines, Discoveries, in 1992. It was written by somebody named Alfred Tichinetto. I think I'm pronouncing. And
I have that.
he mentioned that he wanted to write a book, but they never sort of say, but they always say, but I was unable, or I couldn't do it but no one ever actually.
It could be done. I could, my book is I didn't attempt to write the book. The book is pretty much like about 75% finished.
Really?
I'm about 100, maybe 175 pages in. And, let me see how I can put this without name dropping. Somebody gave me a heads up on what was going to happen if I made money on this book. Do it as a blog, do it with this, do it as a blog, do it as this way, do it that, otherwise they're going to come after you and they're going to, you have to have a license and, you send Peter Bennett a copy of the Constitution, the First Amendment, right? Problem solved. There was nothing, a lot of the concerns about you don't need a license to write a book. You need a license if you're using music and there's copyright things involved. You don't need a license to write about people unless there's going to be a problem. Oh, this is slander or this is, but that's neither here nor there. It's a lot of people attempted it, but with this group, obviously there was a lot of things that they didn't want known to the public.
Exactly.
That's why they tell the story themselves the way they want the story told.
To be told. Right.
And that's why the Joe Longs and the Sandy Lindsers and everybody else gets left out of the script. And
you're right.
Yeah, I'm and from going back to that interview with Joe, I'm very unforgiving of Jersey boys. It's
really okay. Right.
I like it. It's fun entertainment. They take so many liberties with the timeline, with the chronology. There are, half a dozen anachronisms in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, right. That's understandable. I don't think you could get around that. They're trying to put 60 years of a music history into a 2-hour show. That
right. And it is understandable. I would hate to have to comprise all of that into a sandwich.
But for Joe Long to be in that band for 10 of their great years and not hardly mentioned, like you said, maybe a footnote.
I think his name is mentioned once, and it's in that conversation where they just casually mention his name as a studio musician.
Right? Yeah. Yes.
Well, that's when they said, when Frankie was making his comeback after everyone had left, they said, "Oh, we'll get you." Bob Gaudio says, "Oh, we'll get you 2 new people, Joe Long and Charlie Colello. They're from New Jersey too." That was it.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to go back a little bit.
Please.
Anthony, you mentioned Walt Golander, and Walt wrote an article in 72.
Yes.
A lot of what we know about the 4 lovers.
That was the 4 lovers. Yeah.
We can thank Walt Golander for.
Right.
A lot of what Rex Woodard wrote about the 4 lovers came from Walt.
Yeah.
So credit where credit is due, and I think a lot of what I found out, a lot of my research is based on Woodard's articles. For years, all we knew about the 4 seasons
that was
from him.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So that is largely the springboard for my book. There used to be a really good site. And again, you probably know more about this than me, but it was the Genuine Imitation Life Gazette website. It was just Gilg, G-I-L-G.
Yeah, Frank Ravello. That was Frank Ravello.
Do we know the people who ran this or anything about that?
Frank Ravello. That was his.
Okay, great. I missed that. I don't.
great
know.
information and pictures, and now all gone.
It's all gone. Yeah.
A lot of the articles I got came from that website. It was before I knew anybody. It was before I met anybody. It was before anybody answered my calls or emails, before I actually started doing the book for real.
Wow, really?
And so a lot of the bedrock, the foundation of what became my book was built on those articles on that website. So
Interesting.
I hope this thing comes out. I hope I can find the time to just finish it off. I mean, I would need at least a year.
I hope you find the time. So then you do plan on releasing this book, Mike? Am I correct?
I hope so. I mean, I would hate to have written all of that for nothing.
Yes.
At some point it's going to come out. I'm 54 now.
Yeah, you're young. You're young. You're young.
I have another year before my next book comes out. At some point, I'd like to do it, though. And it would, there's going to be legal pushback, but there's nothing in there that would, you know what I mean? I could use the publicity, Bob Gaudio, wherever you are.
Yeah, there you go.
Come on, Bob.
I would love to read it. I would love to read it. I mean, by all means. How about you, Anthony? Don't you think that'd be interesting?
Oh, yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
So, okay, George.
No. You go, Anthony.
Getting back to the music a little bit. How about how about things in the 80s? Is there anything that sort of
I got it
in the 80s?
I think we talked briefly about this on Seasons on Saturday. I call it SOS because when it's written on YouTube or something in the comments, sometimes we refer to it as SOS. So because I'm doing the 70s book right now, SOS to me lately is meaning Son of Sam. But I got Street Fighter when it came out. Well, my dad got Street Fighter when it came out. It was 85, fall of 85, I believe. And at least that's when we got it.
Right.
10th grade.
85.
Sophomore year, I'm 15. And it was played in the house every night during dinner.
Yeah.
And so it just became songs that you hear every day. And I wasn't crazy about most of it. I was, again, at this point in my life, I'm consumed by heavy metal.
Okay.
And Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, and I went through that whole thing,
that whole phase, huh?
So it was my life was more like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I was a cross between Jeff Spicoli and John Bender, so from the Breakfast Club. So it was I loved, and to this day I still love the title track, of Street Fighter.
Yeah.
It took me 10 years to hear it live. I don't think I saw Frankie play it live until 95 at the Garden, which was still, I think it was still called the Garden State Arts Center at that point. But I remember, people say that they heard it live in the 80s. I never caught it live in the 80s. I don't know why, but there was that period where from 82, 81, throughout the rest of the decade, every concert, every year that passed, Frankie would say, "We're putting out a new album. We're in the studio. We're working on a new album every year. We're working on. What about that album? Oh yeah,
what about that album? Yeah,
and no new album. So when Street Fighter finally came out, hey, but I wasn't crazy about Veronica, and I wasn't crazy about that diabolical cover of Book of Love. I don't know. It was just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe some people would have my head for that, but it was just, it hasn't aged well. Let's put it that way. It was great at the time, but it hasn't aged well. I don't know. That's just, you asked, Anthony, you asked.
Yeah, you're in Lee Shapiro's corner with that opinion.
Well, I'm not in his corner on the title track. I disagreed with Lee on that.
Yeah, you know what? I disagree with Lee too, because I know on the Seasons on Saturday, Lee kind of bashed Frankie a bit. Come on, Frankie's no street fighter and this and that. Frankie is from the streets. He can hold his own, and if he couldn't, someone else would. So I don't think that statement by Lee, sorry Lee, is very.
Al Pacino's not really a mafia crime boss.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Street Fighter, I did enjoy the album. Picked it up in '84, early '85. Love the artwork, the cover. And I did enjoy the album. Again, Street Fighter, Book of Love, Veronica. Just really enjoyed the album. I mean, I still listen to it.
There are things on Hope and Glory that I like a
Oh.
little more than Street Fighter.
Hope and Glory is on the top of my list. Love it.
Yeah. But you know, again, they went through that cycle after following Street Fighter. If you kept seeing them live after Street Fighter, they began that cycle again of we're in the studio. We got an album coming out in 2 months. We got it, you know, to the point where there was a timeline about it, that we got an album coming out in a couple months, and that never happened until Hope and Glory.
Exactly.
And, to the point where it almost sounded like it was almost recorded 6 years earlier. Almost like Hope and Glory would have been huge in the 80s, but it was released kind of after.
I thought that was, I'm no musical, you know, genre expert, but I thought that sounded very 90s with
You think so?
Yeah, they put in synthesizers and electronic music and drum programming.
Yeah.
What was that song? There's one song that really, really commercial sounding, real like state of the heart or state of something.
Yeah, it was
State of
my heart, state of my heart, and then they changed the title.
That would have been huge in the 80s.
Sure. Oh yeah.
But it sounds like the Top Gun soundtrack. You know, it's very, you know, it fits it, and that's for that reason. I think it would have been huge. It was, you know, it's every trend of the 80s pop in that one song.
Yeah, well, that song got no one even knew that album was released.
I know, and it's crazy.
Under the cover of Dark.
That long.
There was never a word about it. They didn't release any songs from it. They never even played. They never played a song from it in concert or on a TV show. Yeah,
and sonically, it doesn't sound all that different from Street Fighter. Like it could have been, you know, like Who Loves You, Helicon, Street Fighter, Hope and Glory. They're almost like side by side, like Rubber Soul Revolver. You know, it's kind of like, and there's like these twins separated by 8 years, 6 years, whatever it is.
Yeah,
7 years. 85, 92, 7 years.
7 years.
Oh, it's 92. I see. I keep thinking it's 94. 92.
No.
You're right.
Yeah. Anyway, when I picked that album up, I couldn't believe what was coming out of the speakers. It was fresh. It was new. I really enjoy the album. Mike, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on Frankie Valli's last 2 albums? One being the jazz album and the one in '07.
Romancing the 60s.
Yes, Romancing the 60s. What do you think of those 2 albums?
Let me put it this way. If when he plays that section of the album live for the past 200 years, that's my bathroom break.
Okay.
I mean, that's harsh, but
no,
I'm not a fan of it. It's not, I mean, he's just pushing it like it came out yesterday. It's like, there are better albums. The jazz album, I like that a lot more, but I haven't listened to it a whole lot.
Okay.
Let me ask you guys.
The jazz album.
Tony and I were talking about the solo albums, you know, which don't get enough love, right?
Agreed.
I have to ask, and this is an album I love, and I will fight anybody to the death to defend this album. But one of the things we should have asked Lee, Tony, when we had him, why did nobody stage an intervention on Frankie for this?
Well, we brought that up. We brought that.
Is this? Oh, you have brought it up. This is the glam period.
Yeah.
This is Frankie Ziggy Stardust period.
I devoted several posts during 1 week to that album. And
you did.
And the first thing I mentioned was, is this not the worst album cover?
But in my opinion, and it's a very controversial one, I think it's his best solo work.
I love it.
Yeah,
it's his crowning achievement.
Both Against the Current. I love it. I enjoy that album.
As particular as Frankie is about his appearance, I can't believe he approved that album cover. It's so bad.
Well, they definitely overdid it on the makeup. I mean, that goes without saying. I
Yes,
think they
yes.
could have maybe toned it down a bit. I don't know what they were trying to.
You
I
saw
mean,
it.
the perm was one thing, but then he shows up looking like Maud.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm so on the shot. I mean, it is what, 76, 77?
Right. So, I mean, he gets a pass, I guess.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
By all means.
Content-wise, the songs within the album are great. The ballads are I thought tremendously sung.
That's his masterpiece as far as I'm concerned.
Great, yeah.
The one sort of beef I had was that I thought it was not correctly titled. You know, they titled the album as "Lady Put the Light Out." They didn't even release that as a single. It's not really the best song on the
Correct.
album. So I couldn't really figure out why they named it that. But, you know,
I don't know.
we thought like Native New Yorker would have been a more appropriate title. Would have caught your eye.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Mike, let me ask you, how are you? I mean, do you collect a lot of Four Seasons? Are you into the memorabilia, anything of that sort? Posters?
Not so much.
Okay.
Not so much. I have I mean, I have a lot of my stuff readily available over here, so it's just in case.
Great.
I always, you know, if Ken will tell you that I always kind of held up album covers on when he was hosting seasons on Saturday. But I mean, I have like, I've always been like, I mean, one of the things, and I'm not an audiophile, so I don't care about like Take 18 on the 37th disc of whatever, you know.
Take 18.
And you guys talked a lot about that, and we need people like thank God for you that you guys exist. You know,
That was
Yes.
specialty.
I have to have everything in mono and stereo.
Same here.
I have, so I mean, I got these ones over here, but all right. So let me see if all right. So I obviously mono and stereo, right? Just basic things, right?
Beautiful.
Speaking of the gold vault, I don't know where it is, but I had it here, and all right. So
you have the one with the two
the gold vault I have, and this is probably common, I don't know, but I've got one on a Holland label.
Holland.
The Netherlands, so this is a different looking Phillips label.
Yeah, I have a couple albums like that. Those are imports. What does the front cover look like?
And I looked at Discogs.
Oh, okay.
I looked at Discogs, and according to Discogs, this is like $40.
Oh, wow.
And I got it for $3.
Good buy. Yeah. That
I
was
got this other,
Pick it
I don't know if this is a rarity. Charlie Francis, Barbara Brown, The Bugs, and Frankie.
I have a couple of those, but I picked up one the other day sealed. And yeah.
And I found a copy. I don't know why I didn't buy this, and I don't remember who I was talking to about this. I don't remember if it was Ken. It might have been Johnny Hornsby. We lost Johnny Hornsby a few months back, maybe last year, and he was a friend who lived down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans. And I found a copy of Watertown, and written on it said Colello.
Why?
Really?
And just in pen, it said Colello. So I was like, just kind of like playfully, I should get this and find Charlie Colello and see if this was his, you know?
Sure, yeah. So
I mean, who else writes Colello?
Yeah. Interesting.
Or I mean, back then, you know, you'd bring your records into school so the music teacher can play them in class, and then you would, or if you went to a party or something and you wrote your name on the cover. I mean, my mom wrote on my records when I brought them to school. So what are the chances? Some kid named Colello took it to school? Watertown, you know?
Exactly. But those are some beautiful albums. I collect the same. I want the mono, the stereo, the original albums. Did you ever pick up the box set that came out in 23?
I did, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. That I don't have with me. I don't even know where that is. If it's
Okay.
somewhere, I don't even know if it's in his house.
A little hard to carry around.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. What did you think of that?
I haven't gotten through it.
Same.
I haven't gotten through it. It's like I'm like Ken in the sense that I go toward the Motown stuff,
Oh yes, that was the
you
first.
know, and I stay there. And it's like, and I'm partial to the 70s, you know, and
Okay.
Helicon and, you know, those guys, you know. I mean, I recognize, of course, you know, the original group, but my heart is with that 70s version, you know. And
I see.
I was more interested in the stuff that what I would have liked to see more of was from 77, you know, from that period.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you know, but I haven't spent a whole lot of time. This is why I kind of bailed out on those conversations, because I haven't spent a lot of time with the box set.
Okay. Well, like you
and I can't contribute much to those discussions. So
yeah. No, I understand. I'm still going through the box set, especially this book right here. In fact, signed by Frankie Valli. I had him autograph it when he had his Hollywood star on the Walk of Fame.
Right.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah, I dip into this book all the time. And again, still going through that box set again, 44, 45 CDs, the mono version of Genuine Imitation Life Gazette. It is just it's a gold mine.
That was the selling point for me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The you know, the mono
Of
Imitation Life Gazette.
Right. And I think that is the only place you can find the Genuine Imitation Life Gazette in mono. Last year on Record Store Day, which today is Record Store Day, they had a release of the Genuine Imitation Life Gazette, but it's the stereo version, not the mono. So I think there's only 2,500 copies of the mono version.
It took me years just to find a copy of that album, period.
Like I said, it took me 4 or 5 years to even know it existed and find it. I was 16, 17 years old when I found the album.
That you just made me remember what I wanted to say earlier. A question for both of you guys. I mean,
yeah,
more Anthony, because he lived all that stuff in real time in the 60s.
He was there. Yeah.
What were your thoughts on Imitation Life Gazette when it came out? Did it kind of scare you away, or did you stick with them through the whole time, or were there moments, were there years where you kind of got off the bus for a while?
No, not at all. Never. Yeah, I was such a hardcore. I fell in love with the Four Seasons the first time I heard Sherry, and I just stayed in love with them throughout. And I just recognized it as an attempt to sort of change their sound, to keep up with the times, you know, with the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, with the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. I just thought it was Bob Gaudio's attempt to do that. And I sort of respected him for trying. It was, you know, such a drastic change, but
did you dislike it, or were you just kind of indifferent to it, or was it horrible for you?
No. I liked it because it was something new and very different. And I thought that was good. I didn't see anything.
So you were kind of you were understanding of what was going on in his, you know, his artistic, you know. I always thought that Bob Gaudio was always kind of torn between his own artistic ambitions and artistic needs and having to write for Frankie's voice.
Yeah.
You know, and he's always kind of torn between that, and one's pulling him this way, the other's pulling him this way, and out of that comes Genuine Imitation Life Gazette, Chameleon, and whatever else he wanted to do in the late 70s. That you know, I mean, there's other conversations to be had there, because there was so much output between 74 and 78. You've got 6 or 7 albums released in like a 2.5 year period between Private Stock and Warner.
Right.
You know, and But also, George, you mentioned Chameleon, where, you know, it was the first thing you heard, and then you kind of went back, and then the funny thing about Chameleon with me is that I hear it very early. I hear it in 73, 74 as this little kid. And then as the years go on, that album kind of disappeared from my house. And so it becomes this really vague mystery to me. Like, wasn't there this weird album that existed downstairs next to the record player that isn't there anymore? And it had this weird label. And even my dad didn't know what I was talking about. Like, almost like he forgot about it too. And I was just like, what was it? And he didn't know what I was talking about. He's like, no, there was this other album that you had. He's like, I don't know, Imitation Life Gazette? I was like, no, it wasn't that one. So it took me until maybe the late 90s to find Chameleon, to even remember or realize that it existed. And then I looked for it for years. And I finally found it. No, I found it in 2007, 2008. You know how I remember that is because a couple months later, it came out on CD. That Motown collection, that 2 CD set that came out.
Yes.
I found it on Carmine Street, the vinyl on Carmine Street at this place called the House of Rare Records. And I was like, I got Chameleon on vinyl. See, I don't have it with me because it's over there. But anyway. It's like, and then like 2 weeks later, whatever it was, 2 months later, they announced that this Motown set, 2 CDs, Chameleon, you know, this one or whatever it is, Inside You, that album that came out after. And I was ecstatic, but I wanted to commit murder. I was like, no, after like all this time, I get it on vinyl, and now, you know, it's coming on.
Yeah, see,
I had the same thing, like a little off topic, but same thing with this record called Going Places by Herb Alpert. My mom was always like, Going Places, find it on vinyl. I couldn't find Going Places, Herb Alpert. I finally found it on vinyl. One guy wanted $100 for it. Now, this is back before when it was like, when vinyl was, when CDs were a thing, you know? These albums are much easier to get now. There's Discogs.
Sure.
Right? So... if Discogs existed 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I didn't know about it. So I'm going through all these used record shops in the city. I can't find Going Places. I found it once. A guy wanted 100, and then I finally found it for $4 in a local place, right? And then the same thing. It was very soon after it was reissued on CD. And it's not a rare record.
No.
It's like it's not whipped cream, but it's, you know,
it's a great album. Mike, I want to go back a bit. You had asked Anthony, again, first generation fan, what he thought of the Genuine Imitation Life Gazette and Bob Gaudio's work. You know, just me personally, I don't look at it as Bob Gaudio attempting to do this or to do that. I've always looked at Bob Gaudio's work as him growing as an artist, period. Being influenced by what was happening at the times. I know Lee Shapiro, again, at times critical of Gaudio's work and all, you know, he wasn't this, he wasn't that, watch the flowers grow. Again, I look at it as Bob Gaudio growing as an artist. I mean, Brian Wilson's accepted for just about anything he does. Paul McCartney, of course, we're talking about someone very, very huge. But again, I look at it as Bob Gaudio growing as an artist. Just my opinion, not an attempt, not trying to be this, not trying to do that, not trying to be the Beatles or anything. Again, just Gaudio as an artist, because I admire his work, everything he's done.
I agree with that in terms of, artists evolve.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to get pushback somewhere, you know, especially from fans that, you know, there are fans like Anthony said, you know, he understood that this is where Gaudio is right now. This is what he's doing. Sure. Not everybody's going to like it, but this is Gaudio in 1968, 1969. This is Gaudio in 1972. This is where he is as an artist. Again, the pushback will come from some fans that, you know, well, what about My Four Seasons? This doesn't sound like Sherry. what happened to that?
It-
And look, people get defensive. People take ownership of the music that they love because it brings
It's
them back to a
personal.
certain place. You get defensive, you get protective of that, and nothing takes that away. Sherry didn't go anywhere. Sherry's there. The music's there. But that's what they did in 1962. Chameleon's what they did in 1972.
And I have always accepted it and welcomed it. It's a different type of music. I mean, you're talking Bob Gaudio, who's somebody at 15 years old had his first chart record go to number 3. 15 years old. I mean, you can't say that about McCartney or Wilson. 15 years old, a kid out of junior high school. I mean, to me, the guy is just great. And he is somebody who I would love to meet. When I found out he wasn't going to show up at the Hollywood Walk of Fame with Valli about a year ago, my heart just sunk. I fell because that night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned. My God, I have a chance of meeting Bob Gaudio finally. And then
you think he would have come over and talked to you like Frankie did, George?
No, but when I did see Frankie Valli and that was good enough for me. But anyway, Mike, anything else you want to share? Or I mean, really appreciate your time, everything you've shared with us. It's nice to talk.
It was fun.
Four Seasons collector. Yes.
This is always fun.
Yeah.
I wish we could have done more of this, like the original thing. And, in my mind, we did Who Loves You? And I was like, all right, we're going to get to Helicon next, and then it never happened. So
right.
But I love talking about the group. It's always fun.
Well, look, at Anthony and I, we've been carrying on with the Four Seasons fan interviews, and any topic you'd like to bring up, a particular show on it, we'd be more than happy to partake. Right, Anthony? We're always open for ideas. Always open.
Definitely.
Yeah. But
these ideas, these topics are limitless.
Exactly.
Sometimes, you feel, and that's another thing, as a podcaster, you probably have felt this sometimes. There's like, oh, have we hit a wall? I can't think of anything this week. And then something like, wow, yeah, let's do this, and then all of a sudden with that comes another phase of ideas. So
exactly.
It's like this evolving, growing, living thing that, so,
when you come out with the book, we could devote a whole show to discussing the book.
Oh yeah, that would be great, Mike.
What book? My book?
Your book. Oh, you're darn
Let's
right.
see if it sees the light of day. If you'll permit me a shameless plug here, though.
Go ahead.
This one over here. This is my most recent one. Lonesome Death of Rock and Roll. From the eyes of a Gen Xer.
Oh, interesting.
Fell to the ground. A Gen Xer's take on the disappearance of rock and roll from the center of the cultural zeitgeist. Rock and roll music at one time informed fashion trends.
Sure.
It reflected the state of the world. It was the main medium of entertainment that everybody kind of gathered around, and even as disco kind of took hold of the pop charts in the late 70s, mid to late 70s, and there was new wave or even contemporary adult stuff that ballady music, like Barry Manilow and things like that. Rock music was still largely at the forefront.
Sure.
It was always present as the center of the pop culture. Right. And that's largely been missing for the past now 25 years at least, And so the book argues the whys of that.
Great. I'm going to pick up a copy of that. Can you share the other titles of the books you've written? I know you didn't mention them. Did you want to share the titles of the other 2 books?
The other one is a novel called The Locker Notes. It's just kind of based on 70s suburbia. It's kind of like the adult voice of a child, come up mostly like it's like in the tradition of the Wonder Years meets A Christmas Story,
I was going to
where the
mention the Wonder
kid's
Years.
adult voice is telling a story.
Okay.
And the other one is more history, music, politically based. May ruffle some feathers, but it is called Autumn and Everything After, The Murder of John Lennon, Evolution of Bruce Springsteen, and the Birth of the Reagan Era. And
Interesting.
you know, a little politically charged, and not everyone is a fan of it.
Right.
But but the new one is just a fun, like I said, it's a fun read, based on some of the absurdity of my own personal takes of what happened to rock music, you know, where'd it go?
Right.
So
right. And that book is out right now, right?
That book's out, yeah.
Great. Okay. Great.
The real good one will come out in 2026.
Okay, good.
The magnum opus.
Great. Yeah.
And then I'm going to stop writing books for a while. So
okay.
I'm going to go back to smaller pieces. So.
But don't forget the book on the Four Seasons. Remember, you're already
we'll try to get that
175 pages. That's a lot of work there, Mike. A lot of work.
And then I'll hear from the partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, I'll send him a copy of the First Amendment.
There you go. And you have anything else you'd like to bring up, or any closing comments, Anthony?
No, that was wonderful, and we look forward to that book. And Peter Bennett is dead, so I don't know if they probably have a new lawyer, but we could take our chances.
Yeah,
I will certainly take my chances. Like I said, I could use the publicity.
Mike, one last question. What do you think of the Four Seasons 1960, and this is coming from Backfield, 1965 album, Sing the Big Hits of Burt Bacharach, Hal David, and Bob Dylan? What are your thoughts?
I am a Dylan fan, a big Dylan fan. The Holy Trinity to me is the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Bob Dylan.
Great.
They're interesting takes on Dylan. I'm not that crazy about it though.
Okay.
They're interesting takes.
I
don't know why they did Queen Jane approximately though. I don't know why they did that one. It was, I mean, I love the Wonder Who.
Yeah.
You know, I love that. I love that version that I think you posted it. Somebody posted it of the 72 Garden show.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, I did.
Was that you?
Yeah. Yes, that was me. Yes.
That I didn't even know existed. That footage, I mean, you know, they say, well, you know, the cool and the hip people, you don't ask where they got it from. So I'm not going to ask you where you got it from.
You said a friend sent it to him.
Yeah. I received that DVD about a week ago. But yeah, you know, watching that and the Four Seasons arrive in their Cadillac took me back like 50 plus years, because I remembered seeing that as a child on TV, could not place it, could not name the concert. I see that on DVD. I'm going, that's it. It's like I went back to 1972, 73 when it
was that on TV. The Garden was on TV.
That segment, yes, where Valli arrives in his Cadillac.
Oh, wow!
That was on TV.
Promo.
You're filling in a big part of the puzzle for me.
Oh yeah,
because I remember watching something on TV, but you know what I attributed it to? Remember when the Jersey, I don't know if it was Jersey Beat or the box set came out in 2007?
Yes, Jersey Beat.
Okay, in that box there was a DVD.
Right.
And there's footage of Dawn from the LA Coliseum.
Correct.
Okay. I always thought that that's what they showed on TV. And I was remembering something from 70s. That wasn't?
No.
It wasn't from that?
No.
So what you're saying is that what they showed on TV was from the Garden?
Was from the Garden. And again, it took me 51, 52 years to find that out, because I remembered the Four Seasons pulling up in a white Cadillac on TV. I couldn't place it. I was 12, 13 years old when I saw it on TV, and it finally comes all together now. And it was just amazing.
I remember that. I
Yeah.
remember that. I remember, like, was staying up really late. I was a little
Yeah.
kid. And my dad was saying the Four Seasons are going to be on. It's going to be in concert
Yes.
and just staying up late. And I guess when you're a little kid, it takes forever. Is it on
Sure.
yet? Are we there yet?
Yeah, of course.
And speaking of the other one, I don't have the original. This was kind of a
Oh.
reprint.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Different cover.
Different edition. But
And that one's kind of hard to come by, and it is worth a few dollars. That's a nice one.
That's her picture.
Yeah.
Charlie Colello, who was their arranger and arranged that, he was particularly harsh about that album. He said that was a big mistake, that the Four Seasons should never have released that album.
I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah. I am. I love it.
I thought it was, doing those backrack ballads. I thought I thought that was good. And
Walk On By. Oh my God, with Valli. Oh,
and of course the Bob Dylan. Yeah, he made a comment which I don't he said the Four Seasons weren't sophisticated enough to be doing Burt Bacharach songs.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I enjoyed the album. I wish there was more information on the album and why the original album had to eventually be covered with a yellow banner.
With a what?
With a yellow banner. The
mean?
original album that came out resembled a biblical cover.
Yeah, book.
There was a lot of protest about that.
Really?
Oh, yes. Later.
Yeah, that I didn't know either.
Yes. Shortly thereafter, it came out with a yellow banner across it with the songs written covering the biblical cover until they put out a new cover with just a book looking cover, not the biblical look of it anymore. Yes.
Strange. So there were 3 covers at least?
Actually, 3 covers. The original biblical cover, the second biblical cover with the yellow banner, and the second cover with just like a book. In fact, give me a second, please. You guys go ahead.
What was it about the biblical cover that was offensive?
People,
I mean, it wasn't the true Bible. It just looked like a fancy book.
But it resembled a Bible.
Well, so what? I missed that one. I don't think that was much of a controversy in Newark, New Jersey at the time. I must have been in those Southern Bible Belt states. What happened to George? Where'd he go?
That's why I keep my records nearby. That's just like, we're talking about it, so I'm just going to pull all the records in.
Okay, just bear with me. I have other covers, but I couldn't find them. But let me grab this here and show you. It's nice to share.
You're a real audiophile. You put the vinyl behind the sleeve.
Oh yeah, and in a special sleeve too. Now this one here, it's there's the album there, the original line inner. Anyway, has the sticker, Don't Think Twice. You see this yellow banner? This is the second edition of the album. Now I can't go too far back, but you see the biblical looking Bible. Yeah. So this banner was put to cover because people were complaining. Third edition, this portion here, the whole front cover just resembles an open book. No biblical looking features of any type were printed on the.
I think that's really a stretch to.
Well, again, people were complaining. They were in protest, and that's why the second edition has this yellow banner. And I was jumping for joy when I found it, because normally people would open it and toss the yellow banner.
I thought that was just to advertise the songs a little more prominently.
No, again, it's to cover this Bible-looking cover here.
Well, that went way over my head. I would have never thought the Bible.
And nobody's ever talked about it, and I want to do something on it. And then here, this even has the original sticker here. Yeah. But anyway, just want to know what you thought of the album. I love the album. And it is a stereo copy, which was rare for 65 too, because there were more mono copies.
Well, see,
available.
We learned something every day. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah. And I'm gonna
I
find
didn't
the
know that
other-
either.
Yeah, right there. Yep, right there. But anyway, Mike, I want to thank you very much for your time. It was so nice speaking with you.
Yes.
Again, I've listened to your podcast for years. Again, when I heard the Joe Long, I couldn't get over it. I had to download it to make sure I saved it. I love that interview. And it's nice to know you have additional recordings with Joe Long. And like I
I'm
said,
glad that it was a lot of people were able to hear that, because we didn't have a big audience.
oh,
And you never knew who was listening. It was, YouTube, we had a horrible following, but online, like whether it was iTunes or Apple whatever it was,
yeah.
the analytics come by
Oh.
through your media host,
Okay.
I don't know what you use, George, but mine was Libsyn. So I would always get the numbers back, and I'm like, well, who's listening to this? Because there's a lot of downloads, there's a lot
Wow.
of hits, but I would just look at YouTube and I'd be like, wow, how come nobody? So anyway, it's good that you heard that. I'm glad,
yeah.
because I didn't think Joe's voice was out there enough, And
I agree. I agree.
I'm glad, especially, since we lost him,
Yeah.
he's out there. The only thing
Yeah.
that I saw of Joe was like a 1972 interview in print, and I think it was
okay.
Stuart Miller, I think.
Yeah,
I
Stuart
might be right. And until then, there was just like little clips of Joe on YouTube, in a pizza place, or the sign,
Right. There's
the
that one
street
he
dedication.
walks into a pizza place.
Yeah, there's one of him in a pizza place, behind the, next to the oven, he's
Yeah.
and I said, we got to get your voice out there. We got to get your voice out there. And so I'm definitely glad that happened. But guys, it was fun. It's always fun to talk about the seasons and to finally join you guys, because I've been watching this incarnation of the seasons on Saturday, and I know you guys have done it on all days, various different
all
days.
days.
So I told Anthony I want to stick to the tradition
They were
of doing it on a Saturday afternoon. So this was fun.
Okay, great. Well, we will
Glad
get
you guys
this
were able
posted.
to
We
put
will
this
get
together.
this posted. And Mike, thank you very much. Anthony, thank you very much. And great show, gentlemen. Thank you. I'm gonna
Thank you.